It's a familiar sight, but it's not the European Open Cup. This is the Kaelaris Rotterdam Steadfast Cup #1. It is still this man on the bottom side of Amphion, Clem, and this guy on the top side, MaxPax, playing in a best-of-5 finals. Can't get away from it. So often, this is also a North American tournament finals, too, so... I think the only one MaxPax doesn't play are the Korean Asian Cups. These two represent some of the best players in the online virtual world. Clem proving himself in the offline world as well, obviously. MaxPax not yet getting the opportunity, but every tournament, every time, he waits a little longer to confirm he's not going. He you know, wonders out loud, you know, little more to people who talk to him. Could happen one day. But for now, online will have to do. And online, Clem does still have the advantage, but MaxPax proves to be one of his stronger opponents. Trap played some excellent PvT against Clem. Game 1 on this map, wasn't it? Was fantastic. I mean, really what you hope to see in all PvTs. Game 2 a little less so. But Clem, despite being, I think, really pushed the limits by a Korean Protoss who's almost back to his previous form, is a good what's what I'm looking for? It's a good test, a good measuring stick. There you go. As to where he's at, and clearly he's doing very well. But MaxPax is a different type of Protoss player to Trap. While Trap still is highlighted by his micro and his decision making, which I would say, you know, MaxPax is as well. What Trap was doing was I don't even know how to really describe it, because in a lot of ways, their styles might be similar. First and foremost, the build opener is different, so we can talk about that, right? Trap did go with 3-gate Warp Prism Harass in the second game he played versus Clem, and that was... meh. Yeah, overall, he did not win that game. I think that MaxPax remains the best at Stalker usage. He's not going to be going into Blink this game, though, because it is Amphion, and this is exactly what Trap did as well. But we had a lot of that early game micro that ultimately did not end up in Trap's favor, although he really did try to return the damage. He lost a lot of Phoenix, which is pretty unforgivable for Protoss. I'm not sure MaxPax will have that same thing happen to him. And then as far as how the mid and late game play out, I think what Trap was doing... Okay, I think I figured it out. Trap was doing a lot more main pushes than he was setting up harassment. Not that he wasn't doing both at any time, because that's what a good StarCraft 2 player does. But it was a lot more about the main pushes and the back and forth than it was about the kind of pushes that MaxPax does. That is almost like a... It's almost a lie. It's like, you know, I'm really setting up for the Warp Prism, and I'm really setting up for the Zealots at your third base. I do have a lot of aggression coming out early game, so do definitely want to touch on this. Clem going for a factory expand into multiple Reapers and Hellions. Already got one Adept, looking for a second. However, already losing so many of his own units is not the trade that he was looking for. This is all prior to a Phoenix even having to come out to help. I think that'll have to land. Okay, oh, I was looking at the Phoenix timing. MaxPax had an Adept on the way. Deals with the Reapers, deals with the Hellions, loses 3 probes and 2 Adepts. Technically a win for MaxPax. I suppose the most important thing is he didn't lose any Phoenix, which would have been impossible, and those units shoot up. I guess the good news is, by doing that opener, there's not any type of a Medevac Liberator opener or follow-up. That has caught a lot of other Protosses off guard. In this case, by emphasizing the very starting units, there's a little less emphasis on that Tier 2 unit, the Cyclone, or the Viking, Tier 3, I guess. So they're only being used defensively, prioritizing building the barracks and moving on to the next stage. So already very different from the Trap Clem series. MaxPax to go also up to 4 gas. He's going to go into Phoenix Colossus, which is not what Trap again is trying to do, so... yeah, we can kind of now disregard that entire series. As far as how good Clem was against Trap, that was still a good marker, and against Protoss in general. At a very different point now. Ideally, none of the Phoenix die. All 6 Phoenix will live and help protect this base, which MaxPax is choosing to take the triangle third. It's a weird triangle, but it is one. And is going to be emphasizing his structures, his foundation, on the left side of the map. There might still be a lot of fights on the right side through the more typical attack point, just because that's the way it goes, but this is something that Clem now, if he ever wants to actually go for economic damage, if he wants to hit the infrastructure, you know, he's going to have to go to the left. He's going to have to think about mining on his own minerals or opening up the rocks. Or he could just bulldoze through the natural and that could still work. That's fine too. This is, you know, ideally, I think for the Protoss, a little bridge too far for a lot of Terran harassment. You know, in the same way that you can, in the way that you can go for an attack of the natural and then kind of sneak those 5 or 6 Marines into the third base, hopefully they don't notice, is not something you can do on a setup like this. Not nearly as easily, anyway. You have to do a trap first. So, it's just a little more friction to actually harassing the third base, but it's not impossible, clearly. Clem actually choosing to go for his double drop over to the left side first, unloads it so that's never caught, you know, by the Phoenix completely alone. And where is MaxPax's army? I don't think he was expecting Clem to go right for the third. Had his army in the natural more so. Now moves it over. It wasn't too far away. The 5 probes do go down. Now the problem for any Terran up against this style of play is that if you ever make the wrong move, if you ever find yourself overextending, it's a real overextension because retreating from Phoenix is difficult. If they're zealots as well, that's extra difficult, but we're not quite there yet. So the Phoenix are the only thing good at chasing. Right now being used to help out on the defense. That's a lot of Widow Mines. It's a little sketchy on the right side. Also a little sketchy on the left. Just a single Colossus without a shield battery. 3 Marauders would love to have jumped on that, but weren't quite brave enough to do so. Just a couple of Zealots, maybe the idea of a probe pull, maybe the idea the Phoenix are just about to respond, stop him from trying to do that. The Widow Mines, while plentiful in numbers, were not anywhere close to important stuff. So MaxPax just kept this high ground and was like, okay, you have to move back. And so far, so good. MaxPax playing really nice defense. Catches a couple of units there, a couple of Widow Mines, I believe, in an SCV. Phoenix also alive, too. Although, Clem nearly setting up the trap. MaxPax was paying attention to his Phoenix. Oh, 2 Phoenix have died. I completely missed that. That makes sense. He was forced to engage with them, but that means that he's been rebuilding them as well. So all I saw was that there was still a good number of Phoenix, but he actually is choosing to rebuild them. So he's back up to 8. That's a pretty hefty number. I would say at this point in time, you'd figure he'd stop. He's going to move on to charge. He'll eventually get to blink, and he'll eventually move from his Phoenix entirely. Third CC only just now being saturated, and not quite, as the mules and SCVs get lifted. Missile turret also gets delayed. Very nice Phoenix usage. Unfortunately, does lose 1. I think at this point it's maybe a more acceptable, though. 4th base coming down on this mixed gold-blue mineral base. Excuse me. Which, you know, Clem is probably going to anticipate. This is what MaxPax does when he takes this type of base, the triangle setup. He goes to the 4th. But again, I feel like taking the left side of Amphion, whatever race you are, against whatever race you're up against, is just, it's a slightly different way of approaching a map. And it's not even all that different as in it's unique. It's just, it is a different way to approach a map because you have these minerals that you want to mine out, but then maybe not because that opens up another opportunity for their run-bys. You have rocks that could be broken up, but again, it also affects your defense too. So, you know, people are used to this setup and people are used to this map, but it's an extra little hop, skip over that you might not want to bother with. Clem's supply looking totally fine. I think you can already tell how different this game is compared to the Clem TvPs. It's actually looking a little more similar on the side of MaxPax in his games versus Beyond, which is that, again, his army not actually the best. If Clem's army gets any type of concave on this, it is gone, I think. It is surprisingly flimsy. But never does MaxPax want to take a direct fight like that. No Protoss would ever want to. It's just a matter of if they control their army correctly or not. And so far, so good. MaxPax does not engage, keeps his army on the front, in case he wants to. In case he wants to get a 4th base or a 3rd base or whatever. But it was all those Zealots coming in, killing 12 SCVs, some reinforcements as well. Clem trying to be a patient Terran. Trying to be a patient gamer. He's waiting for those Steam sales. Because if he gets maxed out and takes one really good fight, it could be game over for MaxPax, despite MaxPax expertly puppeteering Clem around this game. Oh god, here it comes, here it comes. Oh god, no, he's gonna take this fight? I actually wouldn't mind a recall, honestly. This is a little scary. I guess it's also kind of scary for Clem. 1 versus 1-1. Clem with the upgrade lead. Archon in the front. Hallucination doesn't even matter. Barely even tanked. EMP across all of the Protoss army. And the Vikings not being stopped from killing the Colossus. All the Phoenix have died. All but one. And that was, well, as I expected. I'm glad I can read TvP somewhat accurately. This is an Immortal dead. A Colossus dead. Second Colossus. Oh, that was the... Wait. No, that Colossus did die. Okay, this is a brand new Colossus. Disruptor pops out, but I fear it's a little bit too late. Clem knows that he is on a very important warpath at this time. He needs to find maximum damage and take advantage of the supply that he has gathered for himself. MaxPax desperately trying to hold on. High ground in his favor. Shield by the overcharge as well. Colossus barely holding on despite the number of Vikings. Disruptor trying to get some crowd control does nothing. And that Viking will eventually, or sorry, Colossus will fall. Only Stalkers left over. Fortunately, the bio count is lower. It is focusable as well. This is where Mass Stalker actually makes a decent bit of sense. And most of the army supply on the front lines are in fact in Medivacs and Vikings that are now less useful. MaxPax will hold on, but at a 40 supply deficit, I'm still feeling a little bit nervous. He's once again going to engage here, trying to take advantage much in the same way that Clem was when Clem had the positioning. He still has the army advantage, so he's going to just get back into the position he wanted. Disruptors so far not getting any shots. Zealot warp-ins being dealt with back at home by the looks of things. Desperately trying to get that distraction, and that is at very least is what's happening. Not a whole lot of SCVs killed so far, but the army of Clem has entirely pulled back. MaxPax, believing that to be so, doesn't technically know, just raced across the map as well. Oh no, there's an observer right there. Okay, he definitely knew. He's trying to take advantage of that as well. Planetary not quite done. Zealots looking to deal some SCV damage where the main base could not. The Warp Prism and the Zealots were entirely cleaned up. MaxPax still on a very, very low supply. All those distractions that MaxPax set up against Bjorn in the last series all failed against Clem, basically. You know, Bjorn had a little more struggle on the 4th base. He had a little more struggle on his main base. He had a little bit more hesitancy on his main army. And Clem avoiding such problems thus far. Still not, you know, just aim, move, and win territory, but he's getting closer. MaxPax with an upgrade advantage for this particular fight is not looking too shabby. Zealots are all gone, however. Do need another round of those to come in, and that's exactly what comes. Clem still has more army that could actually be a part of this. This is why it's looking now very one-sided, in fact. The Stalkers take a very big blink forward, taking down Marauders, taking down Medivacs, Vikings in the sky. Again, not particularly helpful. That is a lot of supply for Clem. Not really that good, but he's using what he has on the ground to get those Disruptors, split away from the Disruptor shots that almost hit him, and take down the Stalkers while he is at it. Medivacs, once again, being a large part of the army supply. Vikings having nothing better to do. MaxPax not as far behind in that supply as you would expect. Also held on to an upgrade lead and even increased the upgrade lead at some point in those engagements. 2-2 versus 1-1. Only starting up for Clem. His armor being late. A little unfortunate. Not nearly as clean of a game as his other TvPs here today. Trying to attack into this Nexus, but there's more than enough units, as well as a little bit of static defense. This base does not look like it's going to go down anytime soon. Forcing MaxPax to also put units over the left side, though, might be worth it. You know, Disruptor is not particularly good at being multi-pronged. You know, they can't be in multiple places at once. They have no mobility, and their shots are looking for big clumps of units, not just like 8 Marines that are dropping, right? So maybe could work out, but it's just, you do need to commit a lot as the Terran player. when you try and break these defenses, because MaxPax is going to have a warping in his pocket almost every single time. So it's not just the units you see, it's the units you know are going to be warped in. And then a recall is obviously available, so you'd actually have to really commit to the Nexus to kill it. Unfortunately, Clem, not in a great defense position for this base. We'll eventually clean this up. This will be a planetary, and I imagine MaxPax won't get another shot at harassing Clem's 5th. Unless he gets DTs and DT Blink, which he is starting up a Dark Shrine, so seems like he's thinking about that too. MaxPax needs another base, despite having a very steady economy. He is the one playing more of a Zerg. Oh my god, 7,000 resource difference right now. He absolutely needs more minerals and gas. His Disruptors also would love to finally get a shot. There are 7 of them. Very difficult for Clem to focus fire them all down, but avoiding them is still very much a possibility. Yeah, no, 7 Disruptors, I think, actually have non-stop disruptor shots. By the time the first one, or the last one shoots, the first one has a shot again. So yeah, again, even just crowd control, very helpful right now. The disruptors might never actually touch Clem's army because his micro is so good, but if it's crowd controlling, that's something. MaxPax does need to actually get some, damage dealers himself, though, and that's usually the trouble, is that, like, yeah, you're crowd controlling the Terran, but you're also not doing anything to them either. As soon as you pull the trigger on your Zealots, then they just continue to run back, and Disruptors have even harder time getting actual shots. So we're trying to keep them in place is also, really ideal. Both players maxed out. I think Clem's army now on the entirety of the front lines. Whoa! All right, I think this is intentional. It's audacious to do it right in front of the Protoss army, though. Jesus. It is intentional. He's going to pick up a lot of units. He's going to head towards that left side, hoping to catch MaxPax without a recall. And even if he did recall, is that a good recall? Because then this army would take advantage of it. So this is now very tricky for MaxPax. I think he did see it. I think he knows about it. I thought. Maybe that was slightly out of range. But, at this point, the Observer sees no other army having retreated. Like, there's an army missing, okay? That's very clear. MaxPax, might have known about it, but was hoping that by continuing to push forward, he would have stopped Clem from trying to go for it. Perhaps would have gotten a little base trade scenario where both of them lose a command center and a Nexus. But it looks like Clem just getting the advantage so far, decimating that economy on that left side. Fortunately, MaxPax with another base off to the right. Oh, no, it's not mining. Never mind. Just kidding. He's running out of money. He does have 25 minerals in his pocket, but where the hell is the Warp Prism? He's so focused on microing that he's not reinforcing right now. He's not bothering to deal with the attack on his left side. He's trying to actually break through Clem's natural base, and it is just not happening. Clem with just enough reinforcements to pop out and help out. Disruptors not really that great in these low unit scenarios either. And this actually looks like yeah, Clem did it. Clem chose the right moment to set up that multi-pronged attack, and it is just so difficult for a Disruptor-based player to do this. This is why when you're also playing Disruptors, you really want to have the map control. You really want to have the Terran pinned back, because if they do start running around the bases, you could be in a lot of trouble. Medivacs do get shot down, all but one. MaxPax gets a little victory, but I think far too late into this game. His economy just not up to snuff. Because if he had 3,000, 2,000 in the bank, he might have been able to get close enough on the Remax to at least hold on. He's never been in a great position, but he's definitely not going to hold on at this point. Disruptors not being able to cover themselves means that Clem, just his little tiny little split, takes care of it, and he has persevered. It was almost as good as the Trap Trap Clem game on this map. Almost. Lots of back and forth action. Clem, I don't think, was ever in a truly scary position. I don't think I ever thought, okay, Clem could be in a lot of trouble. MaxPax just, yeah. Does finally tap out. GG's. Game number 2 is going to be on Oceanborn. In the bottom right, it is MaxPax. And on the top left, it is Clem. Most recently, Clem did take MaxPax down in 2. Well, not best ofs, I guess. But there was a WTL between Psystorm and Team Liquid. And Clem took MaxPax down both times, 0-2, 0-1. That was just 3 days ago. Before that, it was before EWC. And MaxPax was on a 3-series win streak against Clem in the Kung Fu Cups. But it seems like Clem has ascended even more during and after EWC. And I wouldn't say that it's, you know, the amount of practice he gets between that time and this that makes this suddenly turn over into Clem's favor. But I think there is a lot of confidence that gets imbued into you when you win a global championship. Sometimes that can cause maybe some yips even, I suppose, where like you should be really confident, but then now you know the pressure's on because you are the world champion. So when you start to doubt yourself, weirdly enough, you're like, I'm the world champion, let's blink in. No, wait. Then if I lose versus this guy, people will be like, wow, what a slump. He just won the world championship. Ooh. I think Rogue was pretty famous for winning a global championship and then just losing immediately in GSL after. But anyway, for Clem, you know, maybe there was a little question mark as to exactly what type of player he'd be after winning it. You know, they take a vacation, does he take a break, does he not care as much, does he... I don't know. Like I said, get the yips, like, I don't know. But it seems pretty proven at this point in time that Clem is actually stronger than he was before EWC. I'm not going to argue that he's stronger than he was at EWC, but it seems like he's kept the same skill level, that's for sure. As MaxPax did everything in his power in the first game to distract, annoy, pressure Clem, and none of it really worked as well as it should, as well as it does versus many other Terrans. He gets a triple-pronged harassing plus main attack situation, and it doesn't quite come together. Versus Bjorn, it came together perfectly. Bjorn was clearly tripped up and, you know, was probably getting frustrated and eventually got his army shaved down to nothing. Clem didn't even seem phased that much. Continued being aggressive and then just always had more of an army supply lead, I suppose. MaxPax had minerals, but not a lot of gas. And eventually the Zealots were not even not helpful. They were almost like the opposite of helpful in some situations. You don't want them. You want to get 20 Zealots that run face first into your own disruptor balls that you're chasing after the Terran with. So it's just it's not quite enough versus Clem here today. Maybe MaxPax can change it up by going for Blink first. He was, you know, almost forced to go into Stargate on Amphion. Not that he's not comfortable with Stargate. But he's going back into what we really know him as, a Blink player. And it is going to be a 2 gates? Okay, just a 2 gate, actually. Not even going to try and 3 gate. Oh, wait. Did I speak too soon? No, yeah. I was right. So, okay. So that's a change up. So he will not get a Warp Prism that fast, I have to imagine. You could still, and then, you know, the Terran doesn't know for sure until they get that scout on the 3rd Nexus what amount of gateways it is. But you'd still have to get the Warp Prism after the Nexus. The kind of goal is, you know, get a Nexus, right? There it is. All right, so 2 Adepts, they look ahead for any type of push down the middle of the map, because MaxPax doesn't know exactly Clem's plan, only saw the 1 Rex expand. There is a push coming down the map, but not through the attack path MaxPax was scouting for. It's coming into his natural, actually. So this is bad news bears, because there's no shield battery in the natural. This is bad. I'm a little concerned. MaxPax choosing to go for a 2 gate. He doesn't die to this every time, no matter what. But, you know, he does have less units to warp in. Micro? Oh, he did micro. He boosts, but didn't pick up the Cyclone. Clem washed. This is still very, very, very good damage. Clem might not have won with this push, but he still does a lot of damage. He does save the medevac as well. Whew. The Marines. Sorry, guys. You're not nearly as expensive as a medevac. That will be brought home. That will repair. If MaxPax had not cleaned that up when he did, it seems like Clem's intention was to continue rallying. And all it would have taken was for the, you know, reinforcements of MaxPax to get warped in here, because they're like, oh, there's only 6 Marines left, I can deal with that. And then suddenly the tank arrives too. Suddenly you're warping in units a little more vulnerable, right? And it's snowballs. Not this time, not today, but it was still 8 probes worth of damage. 3 Stalkers also gave their lives. 2 Adepts as well. Very little pressure or map control. Observer is going to be taken out, which means MaxPax has very little vision now. Because the stalkers on the front are almost laughable. There's only 4 of them. Another observer is gonna replace the first one, but this is all meaning that there's not an immortal on the way or a colossus on the way, right? So that's not good either. How much can MaxPax do with pure stalkers that are dying? Oh, how did that one not guy? I thought that was gonna be shot at. Nonetheless, all bad news, right? And this observer actually went too far forward. It actually should have seen that that was there. This is MaxPax making a few more mistakes. I don't blame the first game for it. I 100% blame the fiasco and the natural for it. But it's very, very easy in StarCraft to have one thing go wrong and then mess up the next 5 things. And Clem is just, I mean, Clem is it looks seamless, but keep in mind this is without stem combat shields +1, guys. Should there have been charge lots ready, this could have been a real disaster. It's just, there's obviously not going to be charge lots ready, so... Yeah, Clem continuing to pressure, forcing MaxPax to think, okay, not chrono probes, not chrono upgrade, build unit, not that great of unit, gets slapped in the face by tanks again. Fortunately for MaxPax, he is basically saturated. He's preparing to get a 4th base, most likely, in a lot of the other games, but in this game, you know, 3 gases first, gets saturated on minerals, keeps building probes, eventually grabs additional gases. He still doesn't have a Robotics Bay or a Templar Archives, though. Okay, it is going to be Robotics Bay. It doesn't feel ideal for MaxPax. It really did feel like he was going to get a Nexus. I mean, he has 800 minerals in his pocket, so... I think that was his plan, and then he's had to change plans. The problem with going any type of mass gateway is that once your economy is interrupted, it's very difficult to produce the amount of units and reproduce the probes. Usually, if you go mass gateway, you even talk about having a very superior probe count, whereas like a Colossus-based game is a little... You can be at like an even worker count and still feel kind of okay. I don't know. I mean, MaxPax probably choosing the right thing. If he is changing his mind, he's probably doing it for the right reasons. Just that Clem is taking control over this game very well. War Prism, mostly looking for the friendly fire damage, which Clem took into account on Siege Tank. 5 SCVs did go down, so not worth 4 zealots. Not at all. 250 minerals versus 400. The most important thing is the War Prism stays alive and continues to be a threat. Colossus being pumped out now 2 at a time, so kind of making up for a, you know, what can often be that first Colossus from a single robo, first and foremost, right? And he's kind of making up for that time now. 4th base does eventually get slapped down, scouted by Clem, keeps the Marine alive for further scouts elsewhere. He's already building his Viking count anyway, so I don't think he 100% knows it's Colossus. No, he does. He saw the Robotics Bay. But it's also a good guess. The Ghost will be added on eventually regardless too, as we are on 3-base economy. Ghost can be produced, and the Ghost Academy is done. He's going to deal with more harassment, just with a finite few amount of units, and then have all of his army go across the map. Vikings, tanks, Marauders, Widowmines. Upgrades currently even, and will be even for this upcoming engagement. Auto turret harassment still bothering a couple of probes. It's been pretty consistent too. Tank's not sieged up, so MaxPax going to take this fight while he thinks that he can, but the tanks do eventually siege. The Widowmines popped off on the Zealots, and there's still enough Terran forces to tear down what is left over from MaxPax. The Immortals losing their heart and shields, not very vulnerable. One already dying. Second one could die very quickly if it gets on the front. Nothing to protect any of these vulnerable units. The Zealot number is simply not high enough. Shield Body Overcharge was not active for most of that fight, and then just got torn down there. It does seem like Clem is pretty close to a game-ending push. Zealots trying to either go for a run-by or catch reinforcements, do neither. 2 more Colossus back on the field. Only 1 Viking remains, but I'm worried about the actual concave of Marauders at this point. EMP on top of the army. Really enough, the Immortal seems like it is going to be a factor in this engagement. I thought that was going to get focus fired at some point. It did not. That is a pretty important factor, but now the shield battery is still missing, and that Nexus is getting awfully low. MaxPax going to turn those Zealots into a bit of a surround opportunity, taking the tanks out. Marauders getting very low. Medevac energy also very low. It looks like MaxPax might have just barely hung on, But it's not because Clem is actually losing. It's because Clem has yet to reinforce with the might of his army. There's Ghosts, Vikings, Widowmine's on the way, 4th CC transferring on over. No harassment from MaxPax, where he'd usually be making sure to do it because he needs it. Because it's good and he needs it, and now he can't do it. He's forced to use whatever distraction or harassing units he would have usually used to then go and try and catch those reinforcements, get on the backside of the tank. Somewhat effective, not nearly enough. One Zealot managed to make its way across the map, apparently. That was it. Shield Body Overcharge is once again available, and now 4 Colossus is actually quite a bit of firepower. 3 is typically that amount you see. It's just a solid number while you move over into other, Disruptors or maybe even Immortals, actually. Some games, though, Colossus, and a lot of them can be good. I don't know, the more Colossus you have, the more that Clem's really going to need a Concave or a good amount of Vikings, which he had lost most of them. I would say that the problem is, you don't want to have a lot of Colossus because they do become more vulnerable to the rising Viking numbers. The later the game goes, I imagine just like the amount of army, right? If they get a Concave, again, Colossus aren't the most impressive if they're one is shooting at a Marauder, doesn't kill very fast. It's an army that's going to hold for now, is what I'm trying to say, but it's not a good army overall. And, not just because of the composition, but because of the supply. Clem is maxed out. It's 1-1 to +2, so even upgrades. But MaxPax never getting to that second Forge upgrade. Can't quite afford it, perhaps. Disruptors are on the way, hoping to save the day. That Clem is all focused on the attack. Everything back home has gone swimmingly for our Terran. MaxPax desperately holding on to the 3rd after his 4th was destroyed. He barely has any more money. The Shield Body Overcharge currently saving his Colossus. Disruptors are going to be taken out. Clem realizing there is the opportunity. And without Disruptor shots, this army just will not die. GG. Clem wins game number 2. Pretty convincing as well. He kind of won from minute 8 or something. I don't remember. But he kind of won long before the game actually ended. It's just that MaxPax certainly would be a player where you would say, okay, you are behind, but I know that you're going to have that one engagement or that one run by where suddenly things are going to flip and you're going to have a moment of your own. You're going to be able to come back. And it looked like it was going to happen when the Zealots took out that second tank, when his 4th base was still up, when his Colossus were still alive. It looked like maybe Clem had run out of steam on the offense. And then you looked at the supply and you were like, oh, never mind. Never mind. And then the army never actually got dislodged, which is kind of crazy to me. I felt like it was so close to being dislodged and never quite. And this could potentially be the final game on Ghost River. Top right it is MaxPax, top left it is Clem. Ghost River has a couple of nasty pushes from the Terran. Wonder if Clem's going to try and go for one just to clean 3-0 as quick as possible. Doesn't have to. And I don't really think of him as a player that does that. Even in this matchup, he's still, to me, a macro player. He does these factory expands. He does no fast 3Cs, actually. But I guess because I've never seen him SED pull. Not that I can remember, anyway. And I haven't seen him emphasize tank pushes. The tank pushes I'm talking about are like very common on the NA ladder. A lot of the North American Terrans do them. Spirit sometimes does them. Here, Marine definitely went through a phase where he did a lot of 2-base emphasis. And even though Clem, does TvP things, factory expand first, aggressive first, 2-base aggression second, then 3cc. I still would never call him a cheeser or all-inner, that's for sure. Anything he does is usually with the mind that it's inconsequential enough that, like, if it doesn't work, he can still have a good chance in the game. Yeah. I mean, he can still do something that's really bad. He could still overreach and over-dedicate and lose an entire Cyclone Medevac army or whatever and be in some trouble, but... Not only does he do things that are more poking and prodding, he also does them in a fashion that he almost never loses everything anyway, so... Alright, Clem is factory expanding. First Reaper is on the way. Second Reaper here. He did open up the first game with 4 Reaper 2 Paladin, was it? And this is going to ensure that he gets control of the game for the very first few minutes. When it comes to the 3 or 4 gate question, he won't have really a say in that. He'll have to play the defensive for it. But it's not even going to be that, because it is a Stargate, actually, not a Twilight Council. Which I think makes sense for this. I mean, we think of Stargate being good for maps that are like Amphion, where the space to get to your opponent's main is entirely air-based. That makes a lot of sense, defensively and offensively. Perhaps you think of them as like something that's like a big map, just because they can traverse it faster. Or the Terran would be maybe a little more stuck, having their ground units fly around or run around. But a short map like this, I mean, the Stargate can actually be a good call, too. Just basically having a unit that crowd controls, even if it doesn't necessarily kill. It's either way a delicate balance. If Clem was really pushing the issue with an attack off of the 2 bases, either way, Stalkers or Phoenix, you're going to have a little bit of difficulty, but... 2 base emphasis into Colossus, perhaps, as well. Robo is not yet on the way. Clem also not quite pushing the issue. He more so was waiting for the Cyclone and just a couple of Marines. I don't think he actually knows about the Phoenix, but he did see the Stargate. And very few Protoss players in this day and age are going Oracle in the Twilight Council, and I would definitely not see that happening on a map like this. So I think he knows it's Phoenix. Phoenix are great at dealing at things that are in their medevac or things that are on their own. They're not necessarily that great when all the units combine together. And that's what Clem has waited for. MaxPax actually probably counting the seconds and thinking of every particular attack timing was like, oh, he's not attacking me. He actually was. He was just taking an alternative path and waiting longer than he might have expected because he was waiting for more reinforcements. So the Phoenix, they're out of position, sure. But I would say more so that they just wasted energy. Now there's only 1 pickup left over because the first 2 used it on SCVs. And that is far more concerning to me. They are regaining their energy. You're about to have 4 pickups once again. You take Queens, what? You take Cyclones out of the equation. Maybe the rest of the army can take care of everything else. Maybe. 5 Phoenix now available. More ground army, but no shield battery to help out. When MaxPax takes the engagement outside of his natural, which he kind of has to do because he does need to get to a 3rd at some point. He never added on the Robo, by the way, so I think his plan was definitely to get a faster 3rd Nexus, thinking that he could handle some type of minor pressure in the early game. And I think he was wrong about that, unfortunately. Clem with, again, it is committed. I never want to say this isn't committed, because it is. He is delaying his barracks, delaying his stim, delaying his combat shields, but the way that he controls his army, you know, waiting a little bit longer, so it's a little bit of an off timing, it always seems to get some amount of success. In this game, it wins the game. But even if it didn't win, it seems to always get that modest amount of success, or it's able to retreat, and it just doesn't feel so bad. And I would say this is game-ending damage. GG's. Clem rips MaxPax apart. He embodied a pack of wolves, and MaxPax was a poor little antelope or something, just prancing around. Clem just absolutely bodied him. GG's. The first game was good. I should mention the first game was fine. That was almost equal, till the very end. But it just got worse from there, didn't it? Damn. GG's. And that is the first Kaelaris Rotterdam Steadfast Cup. And it is Clem who is the victor.